driftwood on the foreign shores, spilling out into the ocean floor, and the memories all you've left without a trace. Paralyzed with the thoughts receding, current sweeps you with the silent bleeding through the heart into the darkest place. Well, turn around, there's nothing to see here. Run away, no reason to be here. It's the ghost who never goes away. Turn around and leave this behind now. You see the ground as it bleeds in the sky now. You fight the sea, you're always gonna drown. All the secrets that you're holding, all the memories you hide, all the frail thoughts that echo in the corners of your mind, they won't even last a moment. They will soon be swept away when the ocean takes you in its arms and carries you away. You carry all your burdens on the cross around your neck. You take whatever's left that you could salvage from the wreck, and the hard past will follow you like a lost dog on the beach, nipping at your trail till you've drifted out of reach. Yeah, turn around, there's nothing to see here. Run away, no reason to be here. It's the ghost who never goes away. Turn around and leave this behind now. See the ground as it leads to the sky now. You fight the sea, you're always gonna drown. In the broken line horizon, in the castles made of sand, you tried to hold it in your hands, you tried to understand it. The ocean asks the questions, and it holds the answers too. It dissolves away the lies about the things you thought you knew.
Internet, I am coming. Hold.
Hold pulse.
Hold pulse. Tech support.
It's
Hi.
also presenter.
Tech support is also talkie support. So hi. I can see the camera out of the corner of my eye, and it looks really funny. Is it's just like no one there.
And it's a ghost.
It's a ghost. So hi, welcome to DM Chats tonight with me, Andi. So yeah, this weekend is Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are back with Tales from Cyril, where we are probably going to get our asses whooped by some giant swans. Like 12 to 20 feet tall swans. So, be ready for that?
You're here.
So, tonight, I actually wanted to talk about something that is it's in a lot of different books and a lot of different systems in a lot of different ways, but I particularly want to talk about player types, and I honestly think one of the best books that does a discussion of that is the 4th edition's of Dungeons and Dragons, DMG, the Dungeon Master Guide, the first one, and also the Fantasy Age system from Green Ronin, I think has a pretty good section too, and I think they're really complementary with one another. So depending on how tonight goes, what I may do is take a couple of these different types and do a deeper dive of them in a future section if people are interested in that. So we'll talk a little bit about the different types of players that you can find at a table. And of course, this is always, your mileage may vary. Every sort of type of D&D is different. Every groups are different. However, I think that for the vast majority of players, you're going to have either experienced these or be one of these. And you may not want to admit it, like I didn't necessarily want to admit which type I'm pretty sure I am. But it's the way that you... What? It's the way that you engage with the game, and I actually think that it's a really helpful way, it's a really helpful tool for the DM to know, because it gives you a better sense of what kind of encounters are going to do well and what kind of encounters are going to flop or cause all sorts of chaos. In maybe not a good way, because D&D is always going to be chaos. There's no getting around that, like, ever. So, depending on who you have at your players and what you want, you may have different interactions with different types of encounters. So, we're going to go over the different types. And again, this is from the 4th edition. I'm basically going to be reading some of these verbatim, because I really think that the DMG from the 4th edition of Dungeons and Dragons does a really good job of talking about what some of the expectations are and the ways that DMs can create a collaborative storytelling environment. So, I know 4E has its detractors and a lot of people don't like it. 4E is the system I learned on, so it always will hold a slightly special place in my heart. But 5E is a lot more streamlined. It's it makes a lot more sense. So, but I think that reading over the 4th edition guide is a good idea. I think it has some merits and some things that are worth looking into, especially if you're a new DM. So basically what the player types are is really what motivates that player, what do they like, and what do they want to do, is essentially what this breaks down to. So there are roughly 8-ish types. And what's really interesting is that the Fantasy Age book and the DMG really are basically talking about the same types of players in almost the exact same order. But the Fantasy Age group sort of approaches it as here are some of the problems that come with these types of play styles, while the DMG doesn't really talk about that. So I kind of ended up looking at it as like the Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition guide is like, here's all the great stuff, and the Fantasy Age guide is like, and here is the dark side, is essentially what ended up happening with,
Your cat left another cat on my lap.
what ended up happening with these two, which I thought was really fun. So, I'm reading a print-off. I have the PDF of the 4th edition's Dungeon Master's Guide. We just have the second version of the Dungeon Master Guide for 4th edition. So, whatever. The 4th edition's DMG, I think, is actually available on DM's Guild as well. So you can get your own copy if you want, which I do think it's a really good tool for storytelling. Whether you want anything to do with that system or not. So, here we go. We're going to go over the types and just do very quick little snippets about them. And if you figure out which one you are, go ahead and identify yourself in the chat. And for anybody who is in a group, see if you can identify the people that you play with. Might be a fun game.
You!
It's a you! I'm not doing my Palpatine impression again. When Verity goes dark side, maybe I'll do it again. Okay, so the first type is I'm going to go ahead and self-identify. Me! It's the actor. And so the actor is all about their character. They're all about the character development. They're all about the character's backstory. They're all about trying to do things in character. They're all about trying to role-play things as their character, talking in first person, narrating what they're doing. Their character's story is sort of top of mind. It's what they think about. It's what they're most excited to experience in the game. I have no shame in self-identifying as this. I think it's pretty obvious to anybody who has spent more than 45 seconds with me on the subject of D&D, because that's all I talk about are my characters. So I have no problem self-identifying that way. So yeah, these types of players at the table, they provide a lot of the role-playing opportunities. They provide a lot of the interactions with NPCs. They provide a lot of the really annoying what's their name sort of questions that DMs so love, because of course I didn't name the goblin bartender that didn't exist 45 seconds ago. And so they're kind of, they like to play in the world with words and with the story. They're less driven by fights, they're less driven by necessarily puzzles and that sort of thing. Not to say that they aren't interested in them, but if they were to, the sessions that are probably going to be the most exciting for them are the ones where there's some sort of character growth or something involving their story. So that's the first type from the 4th edition's guide. The second type is the explorer, which they are the ones who want to know everything about the fantasy world. They're the ones who are asking, what's the delicacy? What does this mountain range look like? What's the climate around this area? What type of building is this? What kind of style are we looking at? You know, what's the clothing like? What are the towns like? They want to be immersed in the world. They want to know more about the world, the lore, all of that good stuff. They're really, the GMG, I think, does link some of these fairly well together. So there's the actor, the explorer, and the storyteller that we'll talk about later. And these three are the ones who are sort of the lore keepers and the lore builders of your table. They are the ones that are probably going to either force you to give flavor to a story because they're going to ask you questions and you're going to have to answer them. And then you're going to have to remember what you said because they probably will. But they are the ones that will help with creating the lore of your world, with the flavor of your world, with the different sort of richness of what do the people and the culture and the climate and the everything of your world look like. So they are really helpful in that regard. So explorers are going to really enjoy exploring. They're going to enjoy going through new terrains, going through dungeons, figuring out the history of this world. I think a lot of the people in our Zendikar game are probably explorers, and that we want to wander through these temples and be like, what dat? What dat? Why that? Why dat do that? What that do over there? And, so we're trying to get a handle on the world. We're trying to learn more about it. We're trying to explore what is this place that we are in. We're trying to sort of immerse ourselves in the environment and in the game. So the next type is the instigator. And they are the ones that the group is talking about the puzzle for 45 seconds too long and they just walk in the room and trigger the trap. That is the instigator. They are the ones that make stuff happen. They're the ones that want to go. They don't really care about having a long discussion about, well, what if we tried this? Well, I don't know. What if we tried that? Maybe we could try this. They say, fuck it, I punch the bear. And there we go.
Consequences be damned.
And so they are really great in keeping the game moving, because like if you don't have that person who makes the decision to go, like I am awful about making the actual decision to finally like step into the room or do the thing without a group approval, and that can take forever if you have like 6 people who are arguing different points and trying to discover the nuances of some elven puzzle. And having that person who is willing to just step into the room, consequences be damned, is great. They keep the game moving and they keep everyone on their toes so that you don't get stuck somewhere for too long. So they're really an asset to the game. They keep you, whether you're another player or the DM, they keep you on your toes because you know that there's not going to be an action for too long before this person wants to move the story forward. Because what they enjoy is moving things forward. What's really, I think, really fun is that the instigator is usually the one that, everybody has those stories of like, you won't believe what happened in today's session. usually that's because the instigator did something. Be like, you won't believe that they just walked in and kicked the owlbear cub across the room. And then we had this horrible long fight. Those are usually triggered by instigators who are tired of sitting around doing nothing. And I think that can be a problem sometimes in D&D. I know it's been a problem in games that I've played in and in games that I've run, where the players sort of get tangled in their own uncertainties about what to do and not wanting to do things wrong or trigger traps. So,
well, you're in the right place, Shadzar. Shadzar, yes.
Okay, so the next type in the 4th edition Dungeon Master's Guide that they talk about is the power gamer. They are the ones who love getting stuff, whether that's levels, feats, abilities, cool loot, magic items. Everything else is sort of secondary to finding that build, that perfect layout, that way that makes that character flawless. They really thrive in that atmosphere. It's not my style at all, but I'm always amazed at like how people manage to get their characters so well made. Like mine are always sort of like Frankenstein-ish clobbered together because the story made it like that, but they might not be the best at their actual job. So I really admire the power gamers, and I think they're really important to a group, especially that has new players, because they can be backup for the DM and helping to build and make sure other characters are not shooting themselves in the foot. Because when you're brand new, it's super easy to build a character that doesn't work like you thought it would, and then you're stuck playing a character that's no fun, that can't hit, that can't do damage, that, you didn't realize you thought that, you thought that the monk would be something else, and now you're stuck playing a character class that you don't enjoy. So I think that the power gamers are really important to actually have in a group because they help sort of keep people sharp. They help keep the group optimized, and they also are usually great note takers. They are the ones who are the trackers of the loot that has been discovered. They are the ones who make the effort to, I'm going to skin the manticore. I'm going to take these things from the manticore, things that might not occur to other players, because they know that there is a value in those items. So power gamers can be really clever in that regard. But yeah, and like I said at the beginning of this, nobody is probably 100% one type. We all are sort of a conglomeration of types. I don't have a whole lot of power gamer in me, but I kind of want to do a little bit better at it so that I can build characters that are more effective. So, keep learning. So, the next type is the Slayer. And I don't mean like Buffy, but sort of. So, the Slayer is all about kicking the shit out of things. They want to fight. They are there for combat. They are there to get to the action. They enjoy the fighting. They enjoy the figuring out the tactics of a good fight. They enjoy sort of getting in and getting bloody in the fight. That's what's fun for them. That's what they really, they enjoy. And I think that they're really fun in a lot of groups that maybe get sometimes caught up in doing more role-playing stuff, because sometimes there are situations in D&D that you aren't going to be able to talk your character's way out of. Like, you're probably not going to be able to ration very well with some hungry owlbears. Like, you're probably not going to be able to have a really in-depth, meaningful conversation with the owlbears and talk them out of it. Maybe you could. It's definitely something that you could try. But, the people who go into fights, like, fighting for a really long time was my least favorite part of D&D. It was the part that I struggled with the most. I never felt like I knew what I was doing or what I should be doing. And so I really struggled with it. But I've been pushing myself as a DM in River of Turricell to include more fights, specifically because of that. And now I kind of am starting to really like fights. So yeah, your type may change over time too. And that's okay. And the last, this is, no, not the last one for you. There are still a few more. So the next one is the storyteller, which I mentioned earlier is sort of a, like a sister-related one to the actor and the explorer. Probably the power gamer and the slayer are very similar in what they want in a game as well. So a lot of these are very related types. Now, the storyteller is the one who is more interested in the overall arc of the game. They're interested in the story of the game as a whole. Not necessarily just their character, not necessarily any of the other characters, but what is going to happen. Oh my god, is Tiamat going to show up? You know, oh man, I think that priest we talked to maybe was a changeling in disguise. They're the ones who are super invested and super interested in what's going to happen next. They are constantly trying to uncover the plot, go with the plot, learn more about the overall plot of the game. They're there to support the story, which can be super great for a DM, because sometimes, you know, the party gets distracted by, you know, the goblin bartender that didn't exist 45 seconds ago, and you kind of need that other voice within the group that can help guide. They also can be a good sounding board for the DM if you trust them to be confidential. And to not spoil things, but they can then help guide the party in a way that makes it feel less railroady from the DM because it's coming from the party itself. You know, they care a lot about what's going on, about what's going to happen, and, you know, if they make a wild suggestion that makes more sense than what you had going, go for it. The next one is the thinker, who is sort of probably the antithesis. Too many S's in that word. The antithesis of the instigator. They are the ones who want to spend some time pondering over the puzzles and pondering over what does this word mean, what does this riddle mean, what does this vague thing that the dying dragon croaked out at us mean. They tend to be more thoughtful. They like challenges that involve a lot of mental acrobatics. They like to flex their thinking muscles. They like to figure out the best way to use resources as minimally as possible. So they are sort of the, what do they call that in corporate world? The risk analysis person.
So this is also you. Yes. Yes.
I don't think so.
PB.
I would say Brian is very risk averse. Brian is good at resource management. That's the word I was looking for. Resource management. I'm not very good at paying attention to how many spell slots per se that I have available, and I will blow them on stupid stuff. But I do like puzzles.
Makes sense because he's a freaking numbers person.
Yeah. But yeah,
yes, accounting. That's the correct word I was looking for.
But yeah, it's so, and like I said, everyone has a little bit of all of these in there. So I definitely have some thinker in me. I love puzzles. I like trying to figure things out. I'm trying to get better about not just spending all of the time thinking and not doing stuff, because that makes it no fun for a lot of other people. But yeah, so the thinkers are the ones who, they usually have a tactic when they go into something. So yeah, in a way, this is also definitely me, because like when we're coming up on next session and we're going to be talking to these swans, so today, during my lunch break, I actually spent some time writing out the questions that I thought we should ask the swans. So yeah, in a way, I absolutely am this as well. But yeah, they generally are not the ones who are making the bold action. They're the ones who are trying to think through every possible outcome before they actually do anything. And then, finally, we have the Watcher. And that's sort of, again, not like Buffy. So the Watchers are more casual. I don't want to say casual players, because that has started to have like a negative connotation in video game worlds. But they are players who are there for the social experience of hanging out with friends, or they are still learning the game and figuring out what they want to do. So they are usually a lot more laid back. They're a lot more quiet. They really don't, they aren't heavily involved one way or the other. Which on one hand can be amazing to have players that are super chill and are kind of like the neutral party in a group that can be really divisive on what actions they want to take, and these can sort of be the smooth sailing between those points, so they can be really helpful. And I think that the point is that they are there to have fun, and for them, fun may be passively enjoying the game. And that's something that I struggle with as a DM is, because I am a very animated and over-the-top and ridiculously enthusiastic player and sometimes DM. And so watchers, for me, I'm sometimes like, oh gosh, they don't care, but they do. They enjoy the game in their own way. And for them, that's a little bit more passive, a little more quietly. And that, that's okay. Prompt them when you need their involvement, but, don't try and force it and make them uncomfortable. So those are the types that the DMG of 4th edition talks about. And so they are, I think, really a good look at a wide range of people and how they play D&D and what they enjoy about it. And I think it's important as DMs to remember that there are a wide range of ways to play D&D and to enjoy it. Like I said, for the watchers, some people just want to be here. They don't want to have to think really hard about what they're going to do. They just want to be here with their friends and hang out and maybe, punch some goblins or something. They don't want to be in the spotlight. They don't want to be the decision maker. They're just here to have some fun and blow off some steam. And that's a completely valid way to play it. So, now that I've gone over sort of the bright side, shall we say. So, the Fantasy Age basic rulebook is from Green Ronin. And this is actually the system that the Dragon Age tabletop game runs on. And I would really like to play it one day. But getting everybody on board with a new system is a challenge. So maybe in the future we'll play something on the system. We'll see. But, so what they actually talk about is problem player types. And it's really interesting that a lot of these are directly, that these are almost like the, dark side. I'm not doing the Palpatine voice again, Brian. They are more the dark side of some of these ones that we've already talked about. So their first type that they talk about is the character thespian, which is sort of the dark side of the actor. And this is somebody who there is the running sort of gag that every D&D player, every D&D group at some point in time has run into somebody who has, usually it's a rogue or a bard, who has stolen from the party or done something bad to their team members because it's what my character would do. And this is sort of the dark side of the actor, the one who will do what feels like it's in character even if it starts to infringe on other people's fun and to start verging on being a dick. They need boundaries that are set. If a player starts doing this sort of thing, this is where the DM is going to have a conversation pretty early on as well. So be aware of that, sort of as the dark side of the actor, is you can get so involved in your character that you don't pay attention to the fact that it's a game everyone should be playing together. So that's something I think about a lot as my main type, I think, as an actor player. I think about that a lot and try and make sure that I don't, but I'm not always successful. There's another one on here that is the one that I think I'm probably is my dark side, so to speak. Okay, so the next type they talk about after character thespian is the griefer. Now, I can't say I've never played. I've played with one griefer. And this is somebody who just enjoys needling people. They find something and they just irritate the ever-loving crap out of the group, out of the DM, out of the other players. This is what is fun for them. Generally, this type of person just needs to be kicked out of your group. Have a conversation with them. All D&D is about having conversations with people as a DM, as a player, as a person. But generally speaking, if you have a type of person who gets enjoyment out of making other people suffer, that's going to be a challenging player to have fun with. So, approach with caution on that one. Thankfully, I don't think there are a lot of people who are like that. And usually they're identified fairly quickly on. So don't worry about that one too much. That one's sort of like the worst case scenario, I think. So this next one is the hack and slasher, which is, basically the instigator, the fighter person. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with being that sort of way. However, if anytime your characters go into a shop, the hack and slasher decides that they're going to kill the shopkeep, kind of starts being a problem after a little while. I know there's the, running gag of D&D groups that are just murder hobo groups that just murder everyone that they come across. And that tends to be like a hack and slash kind of group. And if that's the type of game that everyone has agreed to play and you all have just decided to be murder hobos, play your game, have your fun. However, if you are in a group that's not sort of the agreed upon terms where we are going to murder every single thing that we come across ever, including innocents, that can really take the fun out of the rest of the group very quickly. It also can sometimes mean that non-combat situations, things that should be opportunities for some of the other people to get to figure out a puzzle or interact with an NPC, those people don't get the chance to also do what they enjoy in the game because everything becomes combat. And so a lot of D&D is sort of a give and take. And I know like a lot of the history of D&D is sort of based in war games and where fighting was the main goal and that was like the whole game. And that's totally fine. However you want to play the game, however works for your group, go for it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with any of that. It's just a matter of making sure everyone's on the same page. If you all want to play a like hardcore hack and slash like fighting through hordes of zombies and shopkeeps forever, be my guest. Like that would be ridiculous. Like I kind of want to see what that game would look like. But yeah, just be aware that if you're playing in a group that has other types of players, people who enjoy role-playing encounters or puzzles or that sort of thing, just make sure you're giving them a chance to shine too. And not just immediately, I hit it with my sword. So, next, we have one that kind of made me laugh really hard, because this has sort of happened to me a couple of times, but never exactly like it's described here. So it's called the hanger-on. And I know a lot of people have seen this, where it is, well, my boyfriend wants to come play with us, because I'm going to be there. And so the boyfriend makes a character and comes and joins in the game. So they're really not involved. They're really just there to spend time with their friend or their significant other or whatever it is, whatever person that they're hanging on to. And so that can be a real challenge to deal with because they can be really distracting. They can be completely not engaged in the game. They may never fully participate. And that will become your call as a DM on whether or not to allow them to continue to sort of hang about, whether to talk to them and try and get them involved more, and how exactly you want to handle that. There's no one-size-fits-all for that sort of a situation. There's just sit down and chat with people and try and figure out if this is something that's going to be okay with the whole group or not. Again, everybody's game is different. How everybody plays is different. So do what's best for your group. So, the next one is the motivator, which is kind of, yeah, so this one, that's a good question, Shadzar. So this one is probably, it's very similar to the Watcher. The Fantasy Age differentiates those two types of a hanger-on versus a wallflower, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But they're very similar. I think in this one, it's the Watcher has chosen to be a part of the game without necessarily being attached to someone else, while the hanger-on is literally only there because they are with somebody else. I think that's pretty much how they differentiate them. Again, these are two different books that these two are coming from, so there's a little bit of crossover between the two of them. But that's basically the main difference between the two of them. Bless you.
Sorry.
Okay, so the next one is the Motivator, who is sort of the instigator's dark side, I guess. And yeah, they're the ones that they want to get stuff done now. They're go, 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 go. They will shut down anything that slows down what they see as the main progression of the plot. They'll shut down role-playing opportunities. They'll shut down, moments of even potentially combat. The book talks about how sometimes motivators will actually even try and negotiate terms of combat and, say, okay, well, there's 7 goblins. I'm a level 4. If we do this combat, I should lose this much health and this many, magic spell slots. Okay, let's move on. So they really are like, they're the speedrunners, essentially, which is wild to think about in D&D, because, you don't know where you're going. I mean, I guess if you're running one of the pre-made modules, yes, you do know where you're going. But they are the ones who want to get going through the game, no stops, let's go. We don't need to talk to that shopkeep. We don't need to talk to the barkeep. We don't care that your sister's cousin's brother is in town and you haven't seen him in 14 years. We gotta go. And so that's kind of the dark side of the instigator, is they're the person who is just like, meow. They want to get going and get through the plot and get to where they think that we should be going, without necessarily enjoying the ride or giving anybody else a chance to enjoy the ride. So that's kind of the dark side of the instigator. They can be great for keeping the plot moving, but they also can hinder actually enjoying the plot while it's happening. So, D&D speedrunners. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so the next one is one that I think probably everyone has heard of, and it's probably the dark side of the power player, is the rules lawyer. And these are the people that will argue till they're blue in the face about rules. And this one is another one that's very much dependent on what table you're playing on and what is happening in those moments. There are a lot of games that run with the rules exactly as written, and that's it. However, there are also times in the book where your players will come up with stuff that isn't answered in the book, and you have to figure out, okay, well, what do they roll to try and hit the mountain goat with the watermelon? Okay, I guess it's a ranged attack. You're not proficient in watermelons.
You go.
And so it's...
Scaffolding.
Yeah, you are right. I think a lot of times the motivator and the rules lawyer can very often be the same person. And so they can be difficult to play with, but they also can be really helpful, again, especially if you have new players, and you can let the rules lawyer sort of help the newbie figure out what is happening and how to play. But again, that's something that you need to negotiate and be aware of with your table. You need to set the expectation. If your table is the DM has the final call and will look it up after the game, then that's the rule, and that's what the table has got to abide by. So it's got to be a way that your whole table is on the same page, essentially. And a lot of times rules lawyers are the way that they are because they have been screwed over in previous games where the rules weren't applied fairly, where things went down in a way that they didn't think that they had any control over or that they thought shouldn't have happened. And so now they sort of are pushing back and, being very aggressive or direct about, no, on page 382 of this and section 3, it says this about watermelons. And you're just like, how did you know that? So yeah, but like I said, a lot of the ones in the fantasy age, they approach this as sort of problem player types. And I do think rules lawyers can be a problem. It's something that you really need to address with your table, and the whole table needs to come to an agreement of how our discussions on questions we don't know the answers to going to be handled, and the whole group needs to agree to that and uphold it. It's one thing to agree to it. It's another thing when the DM makes a call and suddenly 7 people pull out a book and start flipping through it in the middle of game and the fight gets completely derailed. So your table needs to come to an agreement on how that's going to look and stick to it. But yeah, a lot of these are definitely discussions you need to have with your group. I'm not adding anybody, Brian. You added yourself.
He said,
punk.
"Add me next time."
Jeez. But yeah, so yeah, like with a lot of these, talk with your group. That's your biggest skill set as a DM, is to talk with your group and make sure that all of you are on the same page about what kind of game you want to play. Because yeah, like Adventure League stuff follows a completely different rule set in how rule discrepancies are handled than like a homebrew game would. So just think about that a little bit and have discussions. All right, so the next one I'm going to at myself. This is me, 1,020%. I'm 1,020% to like super duper guilty of this all the time, and that is being a spotlight hog. So if you watched any of the serial games, I probably talk like 75% of the game. Verity does not shut up sometimes, and that's really bad on me, and I'm working really hard on not doing that, because I know that it gets annoying for the rest of the group. It gets no fun for anybody else. Like, literally, our bard is built to be, like, the best there is, essentially, at our level at the persuasions and the talkies. And yet, the rogue, me, wanders into things and just babbles. So, I am trying to do better about not being so much of a, spotlight hog in that regard. In that I don't want to prevent anybody else from enjoying the game because I won't shut up and let somebody else have an idea, which is what it really boils down to. I think it also comes down to, say that I am playing a cleric, let's say, and I am in a group that has a ranger and a druid, but I decide I'm going to be the one who leads us through the woods on the trail. I'm kind of stealing that opportunity from the characters who are good at it and who it makes sense that should be the ones doing it. Obviously if your group doesn't have that kind of a tracking person, that's a different story and all of that. But if you know that you have, like, it would be like Verity deciding that he was going to be the one to try and pick up the really heavy rock. Like, I got a -1 strength mod. I'm picking up, like, crap 99% of the time. It would make a lot more sense for me to allow Brigitte or Ramduin or some of our characters who actually have some muscles to do that. And so that's another thing that a spotlight hog can and does do, is they will try and do everything. They will try and do anything and everything for the game. They'll basically just take over everything, and everything will become that person's show. And again, I know that's me, and I'm trying really hard to work on it. So, if you tune in on Saturday and you see me doing it, at me. And the last type, which is very similar to the Watcher and the Hanger-On, is the Wallflower. These are the ones who are...
Sorry.
Yeah, all right. These are the ones who, like the Watchers, basically, they don't really interact with the story. They don't really interact with the game. They're pretty quiet. They don't talk a lot. And they don't do a whole lot within the interactions with the game. What's really funny is, like, and the book talks about this, is a lot of times it's, they are really enjoying the game. Like when we talked about with the Watchers, they enjoy the game and being a little bit more passive. For wallflowers, a lot of times it can be that they are shy about the system. They're still new to it, so they don't know what they're doing necessarily. I know that when I play D&D with my mom, she's not really sure how it works, and she doesn't really know what questions she can ask or how to interact with the world necessarily. And so that kind of makes it difficult to be a more active player because you're kind of like, well, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And so most people sort of naturally shirk away from saying anything if they're not confident in what they're going to say. I mean, let's be real, I do that all the time. If I'm, giving a presentation at work or something, if I don't know the topic well, I'm not going to volunteer to speak up. So I think for wallflowers, it's checking in and making sure that they're confident and comfortable with the game and what they're playing. And then also just seeing if maybe they're a quieter, more passive person. That may just be how they want to play the game right now, and maybe that'll change with time, and maybe that's just what they want to do. I think the biggest thing with that sort of personality is a DM is to not take it personally and to not immediately jump to the conclusion that everyone hates your game and you're horrible. Because I've done that 1,020%. Because a lot of the players in Turriesel, let's say, they're more passive players. They're not as animated as, I tend to be in games. And so when you see the different play styles kind of interact, it's easy for somebody who doesn't play like you do for you to either think, well, they're doing it wrong, or I'm doing it wrong. So everybody enjoys the game differently. Every table is completely different than every other table, and it's just something that you learn to work with. The best tables are a combination of a bunch of different types that sort of check and balance one another. There are people who enjoy the role play, the thinking, the fighting, the story, and together they all kind of help build something that's really magical and really fun and really collaborative and really cool. And that went a lot longer than I thought it would. I appear to be incapable of giving DM chats that are shorter than 45 minutes, so I apologize, because I don't even go that deep into any of these, man. There's so much more to talk about with these. Does anybody have any questions in the chat? Anybody have any questions in the room?
I have a statement that does not relate to this.
Okay.
No, it's a dumb statement. It's fine.
Okay.
I mean, it was a statement that you made after you said you needed to make a statement. So
I did.
You made a statement.
I did, in fact, make a statement.
I caught the book, but not the papers, which is the more important thing to have caught. But yeah, so what I might do in the future is talk a little bit more in depth about the different types and how as a DM you can work with these different types. And what sort of the pros and cons is a weird way to phrase it. What the
Challenges,
opportunities and challenges are. Let's go super job interviewee on this.
Oh God.
So yeah. I'm sorry my mascara is bothering me all of a sudden, internet.
Your eyes won't help.
I'm just, so emotionally involved in telling you all about the opportunities and challenges of the player types. I just can't control myself. It's just so much.
This is my judging face. Also, I'm really tired face.
All
They're
right.
kind of the same face.
Where do you see your campaign in 5 years? Well, Turriesel, the one that I run, is likely going to be done this summer.
If we didn't keep fucking it up.
Yeah. Schedules keep being a challenge with that one. But my plan, I mean, we're a little more than halfway through with it. So Turriesel I see being done in 5 years. I'd like to pick up and run a different one day. Maybe something in the Fantasy Age system. I don't know yet. But yeah, probably we started Turriesel on July 4th last year. So probably by July 4th of this year, that game will probably have wrapped up. We're getting a little over the halfway point at this time. Carolyn, what about you?
Oh, Lord.
Carolyn runs the Saturday Tales from Cyril campaign.
God, we've been going a year, and I haven't even done half the things I want to do. I don't know. I guess it depends on what you guys do, and if you guys, want to hang out with me that long.
You'll pry Verity from my cold dead hands, so...
But yeah, I who knows? I mean, it's possible that Cyril could run that long. I would hope it doesn't, because that's a...
That would be awesome!
That's a very large time investment, and if it does last that long, I would be very proud of myself for having kept a game going that long, because I think, as of right now, Cyril is the longest game that I've ever
made
ran.
it a year, because most of them die.
After.
So, completely unrelated to this topic, if you decide that your campaign needs to take a break for the holidays, go ahead and schedule something for January or February, because otherwise it can be really hard to get everyone together to come up with another date. I've had repeated campaigns die during the holidays because it was like, we'll take November and December off, and then we never picked it up again. Womp womp.
Yep. So.
The question is, what did the cat steal and where did it hide it? This cat, she's stolen so many things. Last night, I was doing laundry and she stole one of my socks, and now it's locked under my bed, which means that the Roomba will eventually get stuck on it and I'll have to shove it out with a broom. That's the last thing I think that she's stolen. I'm not sure. She's, not very smart, but... She tries. She tries real hard.
When she has the one brain cell.
Susie's D20. Yeah, the cats are really bad about, like, if they get into the dice, then they slap them. I can't remember who has the comic that's like, make sure you roll in the box, and the person's like, no, I want to roll in the table, and then the cat comes and just fucks up the whole thing. Yeah, that's basically what potentially could happen at any moment if we free roll our dice. Also, dice on the table when we have the mic on the table sounds real bad, too. She got something good a minute ago? Oh, rolled a 20 on her stealth check. I know, I'm not on cat duty while I'm watching. I'm barely paying attention to the chat, so, yeah, she apparently did real good and stole something, did something.
I guess it was the tiny one, not the big one.
I don't know.
They haven't really taken anything. I mean, if they took anything, it probably would have been the Sisyphus on the floor over there.
I'll find out when they puke it up later. It's probably what will happen if they did steal something. That's how I will learn what has been stolen, is it will be in a wet plop on my floor.
That's disgusting. Don't describe that ever again, please.
Wetplop.tumblr.com.
No. Absolutely not.
But yeah, if nobody else has any questions, I guess I'll go ahead and end this. Thanks so much for tuning in. I don't know why I seem to be incapable of doing DM chats that are like under an hour, but hi. I think I'm too used to doing panels where I have a full hour to talk and then I just do. So yeah, we are... Send all your questions on Twitter to Wetplop. Oh, that'll be our next Twitch channel.
No.
Susie's gonna fire us all.
I'm gonna quit. Is what's gonna happen.
But we will be back on Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Tales from Cyril, where, again, if you pop in the chat, you can yell at me to stop being Spotlight Hog. And, yeah, we are dealing with, like, 15 to 20 foot tall swans in a large quantity of them. So that's gonna go real good for us, I'm sure. And, yeah, and it'll be fine. But yeah, so thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. I'm gonna slide off camera now to push the button awkwardly to end the stream because I'm tech support too. We're a small mom operation.
I mean, I suppose one of us could take on the pop.
That's what Verity is going to be after this fight with the swans. Oh no! He might be after this session. He might be a wet plop. He's like 30% there already.
I love how you guys assume you're fighting the swans.
Can we assume we're fighting everything?
Brian also assumes we're gonna get fireballed at any minute, so here we are.
Alright, well, good night, everybody, and we will see you Saturday!
Bye!
Bye!